I am so happy to be here today. I have a very dear friend of mine who goes by Tatiana. And she has a very unique page that highlights the nature, this unique landscape in Miami, as well as the culture and also her heritage as a Latina. And we're really going to go in depth, but let me first let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
Yay, thank you, Paula. I'm so happy to be here. I had asked you where to look to speak to the audience because I wanted to let everybody know that this podcast has been in the works for quite some time since I got to know Paula, and we were kind of like talking about it. She was like, yeah, I have the mics and it's actually happening, so we're here having this conversation, so I'm just happy to be here. Yeah, I'm Tatiana. My business is Teachings by Tatiana. Like Paula said, I cover the nature scene in Miami. South Florida is just so beautiful when you think about like our natural ecosystems and just the amount of green space that we have. And I kind of feel like the Lorax sometimes, like someone who speaks for the trees. Like I'm just obsessed with plants and I want people to understand their importance. So I do that through the education I provide to the community.
And I really want to highlight your name, Teachings by Tatiana. It's not only just like, you give that educational purpose, behind the scenes that we see here in nature, but it's also like, you're educating many people. I've seen through your walks, your workshops, your curriculum making, you're really, encompassing this whole world that is just education, and it's very like refreshing because it's a new way of getting that information out there that otherwise, I'm gonna be really honest with you. When I was growing up, I wish I would have learned as much about, the rich cultures of nature and the habitats out there, and I really learned a lot when I went on your walk. That like takes me back. So that actually goes hand in hand with the name of your brand.
Yes.
So what inspired you to be called Teachings by Tatiana?
Well, I thought it was as straightforward as I could get with a name. Like it kind of says it all in a simple statement. But I feel like it also just sort of speaks to just how I teach, I think. I called it teachings, not like education or lectures or something, because what I feel like I do is just like passing along information in a fun way. So it's not like I teach a formal class in the classroom, but the world is the classroom. And I don't know, I just feel like it kind of fits that vibe, and like it's just sort of like an invitation, like come learn, take away something, and then take it into your own life.
That's really powerful. I come from the education background as a teacher, and I think the most powerful thing you can do is just make it inviting for everybody, making it accessible for everybody, because not everybody has those opportunities to see all of the world that comes with nature, and you make it very inviting. And we're going to go in detail of like how your workshops talk about that, how your nature walks do, and as well as like your curriculum writing, because I know you've collaborated with Biscaya, and that's like huge. That's like, and then that goes into the whole accomplishments list. I mean, it's really, really awesome what you've done. So as you build this brand, essentially, it's your business, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So you went through the whole process of doing an LLC and the whole 9 yards. I mean, that's something that you if you want, you can share with people, because when I interviewed Swan and Underbelly, she also had to go through that process of like making an LLC, and she mentioned in that podcast that it was inaccessible for some people to get into that process of creating an LLC, and it can be really challenging,
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because like on the drive over, I was like, I really want to touch on this topic, because I'm not a business person, not business woman. Like I am now, but like I didn't have that background. What I knew was plants and how to teach about them. So when I wanted to actually like make money off of this work, because I just feel so strongly about this passion, I didn't know where to begin. You Google how to start a business and there's like so much stuff, which is great. I did learn a lot from the stuff online, but what I really what really helped me in the process was talking to other small business owners and being like, where do I start? How do you do things? And I just feel fortunate I've connected with the right people. And it's been hard. Like, it's only been a year of doing this, so I'm still learning. I don't have it all figured out. But a lot of people in my community I have connected with on Instagram. So that was just something easy I already knew how to use. And I created my profile before I even made my website. And I was like, this is me. This is the work that I do. Pictures of plants everywhere. And people just felt kind of like aligned with my message and who I was. And by connecting online, I've been able to take that relationship offline and been like, okay, now I'm trying to make my website. How do I do this? Or who did you talk to figure out this paperwork? What insurance do I need to have? Like, all these things that you don't know unless you either go to school for it or have some sort of foundation already.
Wow. That, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's so good that you touched base on that, because you never know, you could really inspire both the people that you've met through your journey, as well as those that are listening that, maybe want to start that. And that's like a big step. And then they say, like, yeah, if anybody can do it, then I can do it too. And it's just so good to be there to open those doors. And that really ties along with so we talked about the inspiration, but we are also going to talk about like the activity itself, because last time I did a mukbang, and I think it's always really fun when the podcast is like doing a couple things at once, and I'm gonna let you show the people what you got going on here.
Yes. So I brought some materials to make a terrarium, and a terrarium is typically an enclosed planter, so these jars are open at the top, but that's okay. It'll still kind of work for our purpose. But this is just like a really popular kind of planter that theoretically, once it's closed, all your plants and everything you put inside can like stay surviving in this kind of closed little ecosystem, with a little bit of water that you add to it, as it evaporates and kind of goes through the whole water cycle. Like, you don't have to water it very often. And the decorations I brought are slightly fairy themed, because at the end of the month I'm teaching a fairy garden inspired terrarium workshop. And I just thought that would be fun because I just think it's cute. And you involve plants in the same way, so I brought some materials for us to do that today.
That's so exciting. We also have in the table as well, you have made some cheese bread.
I'm Colombian. They're supposed to be pan de bonos. I did not use the right mix of flour, so they're a little bit more dense, but still good cheese bread. I'm excited. I did bring some snacks.
Yes, and I also got you some snacks. We got water. So as we go through the process of building this terrarium, we can really like dive deep into the questions and also just keep showing the parts of the terrarium and such. So we just dig right in. So one of the biggest questions that I have is related to the terrarium, actually. Where did you get where did you source your things? Like, where did you get them? So if anybody at home wants to make a terrarium, they could be like, oh, maybe I have that in my house. I don't need to go buy them,
Yeah, I love that question, because that was something I was thinking about when I started this business. Teaching things requires supplies, and starting out, like, I don't have a lot of money to like start my business, so being mindful of costs is very important. But I think ethically, for me as someone who loves the environment, I don't like to buy so much new stuff if I don't have to. So I do go to Goodwill for a lot of things, and I would like to give a shout out to the Things Lab. I don't know if you've seen them on Instagram, but I think you'd love them.
Oh, wow. I need to check them out. Okay.
Yeah. They're a nonprofit that has a storefront up in, I think that area is like Little River area. Wow. Where they take in people's things. So it's like a thrift store of a bunch of stuff, like you name it. And what I love about their mission is that they have a pay what you value system. So nothing has prices. You say, hey, I want this, this, and this, and you pay what you are able to, or what you feel like covers the cost of those materials. So I loved that. Was a really nice outlet for me for my last Vizcaya event, because I got a lot of supplies there and I paid them what I was able to afford, and was able to take stuff that would have maybe otherwise ended up in a landfill. So quick plug for them.
Wow.
And upcycling.
That's really cool. So wait, what was it again? Things what?
The Things Lab.
The Things Lab. Okay. That's one thing I learned about my last podcast, which was to make sure to say the names as we were eating the food. We're like, hey, totally forgot to shout them out.
Yes.
But today we are shouting them out. So I will definitely go there because I do love stuff, but I also love to not do a lot of overconsumption core. So
absolutely,
there's that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see. What's the first step that we got to do to make this terrarium?
Yeah, so you can use any kind of container you have already. For me personally, when I think of a terrarium, I think of something that's kind of like larger and has decorations. So you may want to look for something that is just kind of wider at the top. Maybe not like this glass, for example, is a little snug. That's just my personal preference. You can use mason jars. You could use jelly jars after you finish eating it. You know, wipe them down. You have a planter. You don't even have to buy anything new. I had these lying around the house, so they're just glass containers that I had. This is a jar. I forgot what it was for, but some sort of vessel. I like to use clear containers for terrariums because then you can see through it and the light gets through. So I think that's kind of important for this activity. But yeah, use a jelly jar, use a jelly bean jar. I don't know, whatever you have.
Wow, that's actually really creative because, you know, we go through so many jars like jelly, a salsa. I mean, you name it, right? So I was like, you know, instead of just letting them go to waste, like save them, just like you mentioned, and then you can make something really cute. Like this could be a really nice gift for like the holidays, you know, a birthday or whatever you're celebrating.
Yeah, and you could do them like different themes. Like I just chose fairies, but I mean, like you can go all out. You can make your own little ecosystem in here too.
Okay, I love that. All right, so so we have the dirt.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's important because plants.
That is also very important.
They need the soil, right? The plant that I brought here today is a pothos. This is a very common house plant. It grows really nice and long. So if it has the space, it'll get like this where it just like continues to grow. Wow. So this is really nice as a hanging plant because then it just gets really full and long. But this is also, I brought this plant because it's just one of those, at least for me, that will not die no matter what I do to it. And I know a lot of people may not have a green thumb, and that's okay. So this is, I would say, one of my more foolproof plants. And, you know, kind of once you get it all comfy, it'll just grow, you know, not all on its own. You do need to watch it, you know, make sure it's still doing good, but it's a reliable plant. And then the decorations. And then something else I brought here is rooting hormone. So this is something that not a lot of people know about. When I've taught some of my propagation classes, they're like, what is this mystery substance? And this is really good for doing cuttings, and that's what we're going to do with this plant. So a cutting is when you just take off a piece of a plant, whether it's from the stem or the leaf, and from wherever you cut, new roots, and well, just the roots will grow from there, and then the plant will continue on top. So this rooting hormone is just like a little helper if you need it. So I brought it just in case to make sure our plant survives.
Wow, that's really cool because I don't have a green thumb. I'm really, really bad with plants. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's okay.
But now that you say this, and also, is this cat friendly? This plant?
Good question. Not cat friendly.
Okay, good.
There's a little tear right here from my beautiful baby cat who was getting very curious about this before I left the house today. So like a little tear won't hurt your cat, but if they eat a whole leaf or so, maybe a stomach ache, maybe worse. So yeah, not a good cat friendly plant, but kind of works for the terrarium because theoretically this will be closed and away from curious teeth and paws.
You know what? That is so good that you bring that up because I do have a lot of cats. So as we make this terrarium, I'm like, this is closed. This is a great way I can have some plants in the house that I maybe will last a long time. That is the hope. And so yes.
Yeah, I love that point. Absolutely.
Alrighty. Okay, so now with the spoons, do we dig or are we cutting first? What's the
good
step?
question for you?
Oh,
so
cute.
we're gonna have to remove those stones, which I did not do previously.
Oh, that's okay. We can
we'll
do
just
a little
take them
ASMR.
Out. Yeah, because I already have this jar pre-prepped with some soil, so you'll just need to put some soil in yours.
Okay, perfect. So we're putting soil in mine. As far as these cute stones, do you want some or?
Yes, I would like to use them as decoration.
So we're gonna scoop some stones.
Yes.
Here you go. Ready? All right. How many more do I give you?
I think that's plenty.
Oh, perfect.
I just kind of like.
And then I just remove it from mine.
Correct.
Okay,
Because you'll need to just put soil
Let
in
me
yours.
see. I'm gonna use the lid of this for a minute, so it's not as clacking. But a little ASMR doesn't hurt anybody. I love watching those videos of people doing their makeup, and you just hear all the
little clicks,
all the clicks, and or like painting their nails and stuff. It's always a fun time for me. So, this is fun. So as we're removing the stones, I want you to think about the connection your page has with Miami itself. So once I finish the stones, because then it's gonna be a lot of click.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that my vessel, my vessel is empty, I will use a spoon.
Yes.
And scoop
fill it up about halfway.
Halfway. Okay, so as I'm filling it up halfway, okay, so what is your connection, your page's connection to Miami, and what inspired it to be about Miami or South Florida? You can go in depth.
Well, it's the place I know best. I am born and raised here in Miami, so my love of plants began here in this kind of environment. And actually, it was in the 5th grade. I was in the science club, and one of our projects was to help make the school garden. And that was the first time I had ever really put on gardening gloves, used a shovel, dig in the dirt. And I don't remember much else. I'm sure it was very hard for my little 5th grader self, but that was the first time I actually really interacted with the environment of Miami, more than just walking outside or going to the park. And ever since then, I've just been learning about all the different plant species we have here, and it's not only what I know best, but I love that I can be an advocate for the plants of our environment because they're so unique. There are so many plants that grow here that can be found in other parts of the world, and I would love to touch on those cultural connections a little bit later, but I love that is something that can be said about the plant life here in Miami, but also, people in, I don't know, Indiana, I hope I'm not wrong, but let's say somewhere landlocked Midwest, they may not know about mangroves and why they're so important and beautiful, and I can tell you all about that, so I just feel like it's really unique. I see so much of the value because this is my home, but also because there's no other place like Miami.
How did you get into content creation?
This is a funny story.
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, I made a YouTube channel because I watched a lot of YouTube and I was like, I can do that, right? Also had a lot of free time on my hands in those days. And I also got a Mac my freshman year of high school with the intention of using it for school, which I did, but it had iMovie and that changed my life. I was like, how can I cut videos and put different effects to convey some sort of story or express myself through the medium? So I understand video editing pretty well, I would say. because I had a very brief stint with my own YouTube channel, and thinking about my business now and creating content about the work that I do reminds me of how when I was younger, like at school, I would watch like Bill Nye and the David Attenborough documentaries and see these really wonderful people who made the natural world so interesting. And I didn't realize until I got older and got into this work that I was like, they don't look like me. I don't relate to them on that personal level. So why couldn't I make my own videos and informational content with my face, my story, my background, and do it my way? So I think that kind of comes full circle because like it was just kind of a hobby outlet just for fun. But now I'm happy I had that experience of like understanding how to create videos and edit them, do voiceovers, write a script, because that is something I have not yet to roll out, but I definitely have so many video ideas of creating educational content, and it goes hand in hand. So it's just another medium for me to teach and do that online.
That was a really good way, because this could go in two segues, right? Both you yourself, how you were inspired by, content that you were shown when you were younger, both on YouTube, right? And Bill Nye and all, and I remember like that was the era of like when the science teacher would be like, all right guys,
roll out the thing, the TV.
Roll out the TV. The kids don't understand this because it was a different but it was very inspirational. But you bring up a really good point that we really can go in depth, and that is the connections to how you can connect to somebody that relates to you and the content you're making now that, relates to you as a Latina, as, as you have this background. Because not only are, you have like, specialty in these topics. And if you want to talk about your background, like educational wise, like, it really is like, wow, you have all this knowledge because, you went to school for this. So you can really go in depth of like, what did you do when you went to school, and tie it in. Yes. And also with your Latina-ness, now that Hispanic Heritage Month is coming up, so.
Yes, this couldn't be any better timed because we can get in the spirit of celebrating our culture. But yeah, so yes, I did go to school for this work. So I did get my bachelor's in environmental science. And I focused a lot of my classes on education. And it was actually sort of by accident. I took this one elective. I forget what it was called. But the professor had her PhD in environmental education. And I was like, what the heck is this? Because I knew I loved the environment and plants. But I still didn't have that other key piece that was education. So she was a great mentor for me throughout the rest of my time as an undergraduate, and really kind of pushed me into opportunities to explore that work and get that experience for myself. She was not a Latina, but a woman, and that was still very much relatable. And, she was helping to like set the path up for me to go my own way. So, I have a lot of credit to her. And kind of going back to like, who I am. So like I said earlier, I'm Colombian, first generation in this country. I feel very blessed to like be here in Miami because this place is unlike any other, like I mentioned, culturally as well. But then going to study, I went to Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, which has a very different population. And I really felt like a fish out of water, navigating higher education and who I was as a person. And I did a lot of extracurricular activities that spoke to my Latinidad. So I joined a Latina-based sorority, and I hold that experience very close to my heart because that helped me feel more confident in my cultural heritage and, speaking up for myself in that way, and not just like, oh yeah, I'm I'm Tatiana, but like I'm Tatiana who has this rich cultural background and can throw in a little Spanglish here and there if I feel so inclined. Even at that point in my life, you know, I was merging both of these things that I hold very close to my heart. And then navigating grad school, that was a little bit of a different experience. I did that online, graduated in 2020. But even then, I was taking classes that were, I got my master's in museum studies. Ooh. And I was taking classes about working in botanic gardens and how to teach science informally. So I was still kind of like honing that craft at that level. And there were a few cultural heritage classes I took actually, that for some of my assignments, I would speak about my culture, and it gave me that opportunity to learn more about it because I was not born in Colombia, but I do a lot of Google searches to learn, and I have a fond memory of doing a project on Colombian vallenato music, and I feel like I love that I can bring forward this part of me through my education and through my work, because that just shapes how I view the world and how I navigate it.
Wow, that's so cool that, you know, like this whole world, you know, like just seeing like what inspired you from a young age, and then from that you took those inspirations, you found those resources when you were in school, both undergrad and grad, you combine it together, you've really established yourself with this persona of yourself, and you know that's just so beautiful, you know, so beautiful, so confident, so like, you know, it this page, you know, that you have is really unique because not only do you touch base on like the nature side of Miami that a lot of people ignore, and that's just a hot take, you know, but it just really shows like how you as like an educator, as somebody who has this lens and this perspective and this educational background to really highlight things in a way that otherwise could be forgotten. You earlier, before we started recording, we brought up the Lorax, and it's very true, and I love the Lorax, you know, because he really stood for those trees. So, you know, like, as much as that, but, like, for real, like, the real reason is, you know, it's really important to have that awareness. You know, Florida has this very rich landscape, you know, as you know, and we actually talked about that one time that we did a walk, and it was how, that you could actually go in depth into, like, different topics in nature, about plants and the environment, that, you know, are very interesting, and you know, you could really do a really cool podcast with that. You know, you should really think about it.
I've been thinking about it.
You know, that actually ties into the points of the future, which future me and editing, you know, you could just cut this later, but I guess I'll go into that, like the future for you. I see the future. I got the disco ball, I have the magic ball, the magic ball. I have the tarot cards going, and I could really see in the future, like, not only do you have your workshops, your walks, you have your curriculum that you've written, and we'll go in depth into those, but also, like, I could really see you having this podcast that you can really do a topic, like, boom, you tackle this, and then boom, you tackle that. You can have your viewers giving you feedback about, like, oh, this is what I really want to learn about. Do you know about it? What research can you provide? You know, really going into the ground, and you know, even like if you get grants and opportunities that come along with having a business, you know, that can maybe let you to explore different parts, that, hey, you know, if they're paying you, you gotta take advantage. So how do you feel about that future that I have for you?
I love it. Thank you so much. I was thinking about really starting my own podcast the other day because I was listening to a podcast.
Inspired.
Yeah, I mean, I am a huge fan of podcasts in general, so like I got that down. Similar to YouTube, I was a big fan of YouTube before I started, so like maybe this is telling me something. But it was a business podcast talking about this one woman's experience starting her own business. Her particular story led her more into like consulting work, so like helping people start their own businesses and all the tricks of the trade. And right at the end of that episode, she was talking about how podcasting for her was a really great outlet for her, the education she does in that sense, because she just has this whole backlog of stuff saying, oh, you want to learn about how to start a LLC? Listen to episode 5 or whatever. And she already has like that catalog. So I do see the value in that, because I just love to talk about nature and plants. So this, it just makes sense to me. I would love that. And kind of seeing how you have tackled this podcast on your own too makes me inspired, because I'm like, yay, just how you were saying earlier, talking about my experience and hopefully inspiring others. You're inspiring me with this podcast setup, so I'm excited. Yeah. And
you
I
have
just
a lot
think
to
it's
cover.
A great idea.
You know, you have a lot to cover. There's a lot of topics to talk about. And with that, it also brings awareness, you know, awareness to the environment, to the needs that otherwise could be, you know, overlooked. I want to talk about some current things that you have done. So congratulations to you. You've made it to a year. You had your year anniversary walk, if I'm not mistaken. So big congrats. So how did that feel to have this project, this business, and then boom, it's a year? Like, how does that feel for you?
Very rewarding, and it went by really fast.
Wow.
Like, in June, I was thinking, oh, September's coming up. I'm gonna have, like, I want to do something to commemorate the achievement, you know? And then all of a sudden it was September, and I was like, oh my God, this idea blossomed into this, which I'm very grateful for. And, you know, as a testament to my hard work, I feel like happy to have made it this far. Because like I said, I'm not a businesswoman. I just feel very passionate in the work that I do and have tried to learn how to bring that to people. So it's just kind of crazy still, surreal to think about. I have to give a huge shout out to every person I have met along the way. And Paula, you are one of them.
Oh,
we connected on Instagram. So like, again, social media has been like really transformative for me in this whole journey. But like I said earlier, people have just kind of come across my page somehow, put in a comment, sent me a message, or come to one of my classes or workshops and see the value in the work that I do. And that makes me feel encouraged, because I'm not talking to a wall. Like, there are people actually interested in this, wanting to learn more, whether that's for their own personal gain. They just want to walk outside and see nature differently. They want to make a craft. I'm all about hitting people where they're at to make plants and the environment relevant to them. So it's just like, what's the word? It's reassuring that like, I know people support me and see the value in my work, so I'm just honored.
That is amazing. And, you know, hope that you make it to many, many years and keep expanding in projects that you see yourself. And we'll go into that, like, what future do you see for yourself? Because that's like a whole different thing. But before we continue,
let's get into
I filled it up halfway, right? This looks good, or is it too much?
No, that's perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so a little bit about the terrarium. What is the next step? We put some dirt.
Yes. So let's do our cutting, so that way we kind of put our plant wherever we want it to be, and then we can decorate.
Perfect.
So earlier I poured a little water in this cup, because we need some water to actually attach the rooting hormone to the plant itself, because this is like a powder, so it's not like sticky exactly. So I just like to pour a little bit out of the container, because if you do want to do this at home, I recommend like getting a plate or a coaster or something, just so you can set it aside just like this. Because if you do dip water into your entire container, then this gets all sticky and gross and will not work as well. So just separate a little bit. You don't need a lot. And true actual horticulturists and botanists do not come for me. I'm still kind of like a home gardener, but this works for me. So I'm showing you what can work for you. My little pothos is a little sad because she hasn't been watered, so we'll just make sure to give our plant extra water. But when you want to do a cutting, especially like on a pothos, my personal preference is to just look at whatever part is the longest, because that's where you can kind of do your haircut, is how I call it. So you don't have to get from the fresh leaves that are just starting to grow. You can grab one of the more mature leaves that, you know, if they're on their way out, you can just easily pluck them off. That's just how I do. And pothos is really easy. Like, the leaf, just if you kind of gently tug at it, comes apart. So this is a really easy way to do a cutting. But if you do this, you know, on your own with another plant, just make sure you have a clean pair of scissors or pruners, because the cut is similar to when you know, like a human cut your own skin. You want it to be clean so you don't introduce bacteria and then it gets all gross. But this is easy because we just separate the leaf. So I'll give this one to you.
Thank you. Here's my leaf.
And I'll take... So what I did, I just dipped this in the water.
We're dipping it in the water. Okay.
Yeah, you just need a little bit. And then with the rooting hormone, just tap it. I like to kind of tap it all along the edges, to make sure that where the leaf separated from the stem will get the rooting hormone, so it kind of activates the cells, so that way it grows into roots. And as you were dipping this, you know what this reminds me of? That candy that you dip in.
The Fun Dip.
That one. So basically the same concept, just for plants. This is Fun Dip for plants.
That's hilarious.
Don't eat this. That. Please don't eat this.
That's a sound bit. That's like Fun Dip, but for plants.
Yeah. Rooting hormone. Find it at your local nursery. Okay. And then I like to use my hands. I'm not afraid of getting my hands dirty, but feel free to use your spoon, whatever you like. Just make a space wherever you want your plant to go. So just make sure it's a little bit deep so the whole stem can be submerged and you get the rooting hormone in the soil.
Okay, I'm making it deep, deep, deep.
So my jar is a little low on soil, more low than I would like, but that's okay. I'm just tucking it in so it doesn't move too much.
Okay.
And then when you have it in a happy place, perfect. I'll let this dry before I close it again. But then the fun part happens where we can decorate. So we have these really fun little crystals. Well, they're not crystals, but like glass. What do you call these? Glass thingamabobs, stones, rounded pebble things.
I'm sure there's a specific name.
Yeah, whatever the name for them is. Grab these or whatever you have at hand. You could use literally anything. This is just what I have. And then I have cute little gnome fairies that we could use as our formal decoration.
How cute.
But again, no rules. You do you.
And this actually takes me back to when you've done your walks and your workshops, and we can go there. So
yeah.
I'm thinking these are in your present projects. Like, you got these in the works. You're doing your walks, you're doing your workshops, and you're writing curriculum. So we can start there. Go ahead, go in depth in whichever of those that you want to start with.
Well, I started off with the nature walks, and I feel like that I need to shout out because that's how I started, was just doing nature walks for the community. And that was my most recent event, celebrating my 1-year anniversary. It just was only fitting. Those walks are very special to me because I can do a workshop, I can talk about plants anywhere. Like, the physical space doesn't matter, but it really does make a difference if you're actually outside looking at them. Like, there's no other comparison. So that's why I really love the nature walks, because you actually, like, you're in the fresh air, you're breathing it in, you're looking at the plants. I always invite people to touch them, and like, everybody who knows me thinks I'm very strange because wherever I go, I'm just like touching plants, but that's how I connect with them. That's how I learn what plants are, because I remember their textures. Like, don't sleep on that sense. Like, tree huggers are a thing. But that's why I really love nature walks, because of that really like immersive experience. Um, and something that I have heard a lot from people who have done my walks is I do them around the city, around the community, and people will say, "Oh, I've always driven past this park, but I've never been here," or "I've always seen that tree, but I didn't know what it was, or how it grew in this way, or that's what the flower looks like." And that is all I need to hear to be like, this was a success, because that's really my goal with any of my experiences, is that you just take that one thing that opens your eyes and you're like, okay, I'm seeing the natural world a little bit differently, hopefully positively. So the walks are easily the best, in my opinion. Um, but then I know that's not always accessible. Some people don't like to be outside. Like, I know it's hot. Like, I don't mind getting sweaty. I don't mind the mosquitoes, but not everyone is like that. So alternatively, I've had the pleasure of hosting workshops and classes at local businesses here in Miami. So again, the community and me, like, that is my value. Like, I want to support others in their work, and people are supporting me by opening their doors. So I've done quite a few workshops throughout this past year, and I like in those experiences to fuse art with nature. So this is an example of one way I do that, by making terrariums, all sorts of other crafts. I mean, we do not have time to go through the whole list, but I also feel like having some sort of art component is really important, because it's a way you can explore your self-expression, like put your own pizzazz to whatever it is we're creating. You still get to learn about plants and nature in some way, especially like house plants. Not everybody has a balcony or backyard to grow plants, so nature can be brought indoors. Like, that's also very important. And that can be in a setting that's a little more comfortable for people, like in the AC, So while it's not my first choice, still very important part of the work that I do. And then for the curriculum, that's another aspect of my business I really want to continue to do more of, because I write my own curriculum. So every walk, every workshop has my list, just like you have your list for the podcast of like, this is what I want to talk about, these are the supplies that I need, this is the time I'm going to take. So there's definitely always that back end, behind the scenes planning. But I've had a really great project I recently completed for a nonprofit actually based out of Michigan called Fit Kids 360. And I was put in touch with that organization because of the business consultant I hired to help me start this whole endeavor. And that nonprofit centers on the health and well-being of kids in their community that need to kind of manage their health through better eating habits, physical activity, and part of that is through a community garden that they have in their location. And they needed someone to write those lesson plans and be like, how do we talk about plants? Like, how do we start from A and get to Z? And I really love that project because I know what the benefits are to being outdoors and to gardening and touching soil and stuff, but to actually like take a step back and be like, if I was a kid who didn't know anything about nature and plants, how do I make this interesting and how do I make this important to them? And doing that through the avenues of healthy eating and like growing your tomato, put it in your salad, or meditating in a garden and listening to the wind and feeling the grass underneath you. Like, that has really inspired me to like continue doing that work, because not everybody has that background or that knowledge. So that's something I want to explore more, is kind of like developing more thought out and like in-depth programs, because a lot of the stuff that I do is like, we're doing terrariums, this is the one-off topic, and I may not explore it again until I do another terrarium workshop. But what I liked about curriculum development, in particular with that project, is that their program was for 10 weeks. So I had to think about it and really tell that story, and starting off just by Plant Basics 101. And then at the end of their program, they do like a harvest celebration picnic dinner thing, and harvest all of the fruits and vegetables that they grow and make a meal and share it. So I just loved how that kind of just tied in together for this whole experience that they offer. And I was just honored to be able to be like, how can I help you tell that story with my experience and knowledge?
That's so cool. That was from Michigan, the state of Michigan. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it was also a challenge because I was like, I don't live there. What plants grow there? So I really like that opportunity just to explore like another part of the country and understanding their challenges and their beauty.
Yeah. So, okay. So I see the scope, you know. I see really the picture, you know, the big picture that you got going on. And it's really cool how, like you mentioned, you can go from something like today we're having a workshop about a terrarium, but then, you know, really expand it to these curriculums that are being adapted in other parts of the states. And then, you know, you have people that are, you know, they're searching for you. They're like, wow, you really know how to, you know your stuff, you know how to teach, you know how to convey it in a way that is accessible to a lot of people. So that's like a really big appeal. That's really cool, you know? So we talked about your past, we talked about what inspired you, we talked about the future, but you know what we can go in depth is two things, whichever you like to choose first. We can either do your like celebrations or accomplishments that you are like, wow, like this was like to me a milestone. Or we can talk about what you want, well, which you kind of did, about the future. Like, well, 100% for sure. Like, you have this huge goal. This is what I want in the future of my business.
Well, I would say one big milestone was that curriculum project. I mean, that's the only one I've had so far in this journey of starting my own business, but I want more of that for sure, just to like, you know, help ideate how to talk about plants for different institutions, or I even imagine that could be at other schools or homeschool groups, like whoever needs to kind of form a story and have it written out, you know, I want to help tell that story. But I would also say that I guess like the engagement of my community I've been able to have online, like I cannot stress enough how important it is to me, because, you know, being a one woman show, it's just me doing all of these things, you know, and being able to like just easily post on Instagram. Like before I did my last Vizcaya event, I needed a bunch of toilet paper tubes, and I was like, help, does anybody have extras? And some people reached out and they said, yeah, I have a bag for you, I'll drop it off tomorrow. And that made me feel really good, because I was like, okay, I don't have to do all of this alone. You know, people are willing to help and support. At my last walk for my anniversary, I reached out to a couple other small business owners that I know, who one does like the lemon ginger shots, like immunity shots, and another who does her like own baked goods. And I was like, hey, I'm hosting this group, like, can I have some snacks? And they were so generous, took the time. I don't know how much time it takes to make those products, you know, and we had some nice snacks during my last walk, and I was able to advocate for them and tell all the group, hey, follow them, order from them. So I'd like the kind of give and take I have with the people I have met along the way, because, you know, they have supported me when I needed them, and I feel like I do that in return when I'm able to. So that's a milestone I hope to continue having all the time, a big achievement. But as for the future, that is such a great question. You know, maybe podcast in the future. I gotta kind of coordinate that, but I definitely want to do more long form content. Basically taking what I talk about in my walks and classes online, because then I can reach a lot more people. More people can see me in action, not just this was the walk, I definitely want to explore what that would look like for me and my workflow. But ultimately the goal would be to, have some more reoccurring, I guess, clients, I guess you could say. Like, I have started reaching out to some homeschool groups and we're going to do classes, but I would love to explore that a little bit more to kind of like have a group I can teach on a more frequent basis to kind of like support their learning journey, not just like a one-off event. So that would be really exciting. And yeah, just more curriculum development for whoever needs it. Like, I have so many ideas that I can't physically do on my own. So if I can just share that with someone and be like, please do this, that would also make me feel really fulfilled.
Wow. Okay, these are like really nice goals, milestones that can be attained. It puts a lot in perspective, and it also ties in with the next point that I want to bring up, which is Miami as a whole, as a community, Miami, and the fact that how I found your page. So as I've been through this journey and this podcast and all of this, I've been following all these accounts, like, okay, to do these activities, and then boom, I just stumbled upon your page. Like, Instagram was like, here, this person has all of the cool things, and I was like, wow, that's so cool, because your page really shares, and you're very consistent. You get it done. You're like, I'm just gonna share this, I'm gonna do it, boom, boom, boom. You have your order. You're very consistent, and it shows how much work, dedication, and effort you've put into it. So that is a big thing, because it's hard. It's hard to be consistent. It's hard to always keep going and pushing through, and it shows the end result, the reward. It's fulfilling, and it's something that you're really passionate about, which is so good. Let me see. So, has there been any challenges that you've had to come across that you're like, wow, I overcame that. It was hard, but you overcame it.
It's a great question. I feel like this was relatively recently. So prior to like the summer starting, I was a little bit in panic mode because at least right now, with the nature of how I'm doing my workshops and events, I have to seek out some place to host me if I'm doing something, more formal, ticketed, and all of that. And that's really draining sometimes to just be like, knock, knock, can I come teach a class here? And, kind of introduce myself, like, do the whole spiel. And in all honesty, I'm very introverted, but when I start talking about plants and nature, that goes out the window. But kind of on a business side, as like a business owner, having to be like, hi, this is me, I just need a space and chairs, that's not my strong suit. So at the beginning of the summer, I had all of my stuff planned out till August, but then I was like, what's the next step then? Because at least at that point, I didn't have anybody reaching out offering me their spaces, so I was seeking out businesses and seeing who had availability and interest and all of that. And there were several days where I was just like, I feel very disheartened. I haven't found a venue where I can host something, because I appreciate you commending my momentum. I'm glad you notice, because it does take a lot of hard work behind the scenes. And it's hard when things are not working out as planned. And like I said, I have ideas, but I can't do this out of my apartment necessarily. So, having to look for places and then schedule that, make sure they have it on their calendar, I have it on my calendar, all of those things is a particularly challenging part of the work that I do. But how I overcame that was through a lot of advice from my friends and family, because I was just ready to give up. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do this anymore, so maybe this isn't going to work for me. But they inspired me to just push through, be patient. And I just had to wait a little while. And then I got some emails of people saying, hey, I want you to do a class here. Let's talk on Zoom. And after that point, I was like, oh, I just needed to be patient. So I think that's something great. I'm sure many business owners can empathize with, is like pushing through those challenges and allowing time to kind of work, and of course putting yourself out there and trying to like make your connections you need to make, but also like just trusting that things will work out, and give it some time because it can't happen overnight.
I agree. Things, take time, and even taking a break is good. Like, that's what I did. Like, I went on a little hiatus with Paus Picks.
Yeah.
I was really tired. I was, like, burnt out. I get you 1,000% with, like, feeling whether it's rejection or just feeling like it's too much, the overwhelmingness, the editing, and then just coming back with a fresh attitude is just very rewarding, because it's like, okay, this is really what I like. I really wanted to do this. This is a goal of mine. I want to do. And I get you with that, like setting goals, wanting to do it, because in the long term, it's like, this is what you want to do. This is what you like. It's a true passion of yours. It's something that you said it yourself. It's like, it brings like the side of you that is very unique. So I highly recommend, if you have not been on her walks, you need to go, because it's very unique. Because not only is it just location unique, it's also like an experience. You learn. You are in the environment where everybody else is like, wow, like, I didn't know that. Like, everybody's like, what? Like, it's like such a cool like vibe. And really, it's just motivates. It's very motivating. And I'll repeat it again. It's so good that you are so consistent. And and I hope you keep that consistency, because that's hard and it's exhausting. Burnout is real. So, and it's also okay to always take a break.
Absolutely.
Not saying that you're gonna take a break, but if you ever, it's totally okay, because then you could definitely come back and be like, pick it up where you wanted. Exactly. Or it could be like a rebrand, like, ooh, like that's like such a new age YouTuber thing, where it's like, it's a rebrand,
right?
And you grew up on YouTube, and I totally relate on that. Like, the whole YouTube world growing up was just so different. I was really lucky when I was younger to have gone to VidCon, so I got to like experience that, like seeing all the people that I was like, oh my gosh, like I watched them and everything. And then, just like having that momentum, because that's, as cheesy as that sounds, like I've always wanted to be a YouTuber, like the kids like nowadays, like I want to be like a TikTok or something cute like that. But I understand them, because like I was in their shoes, and it looked like so much fun. Like, I think of like YouTubers like iJustine. I don't know if that rings a bell.
Yes, absolutely.
I like she's still very much passionate about those iPhones. You know what I'm saying? Like, she just reviewed the newest ones. I also like to highlight things that get slept on. Like, people don't know the coolest things that happen in Miami don't necessarily involve having to go to the club or go to all these crazy things, spend loads of money, and have to, the influencer culture, X, Y, and Z. Right. Not to say anything bad on them, but just to say, like,
Miami's
do something different.
Yeah.
Multifaceted. Exactly. And I think it's just important to have fun. You are having an amazing time. I've seen it in your workshops. I've seen you so happy at Vizcaya. I mean, that's huge to be at Vizcaya. I think that's like huge accomplishment on your list. It needs to be on your list 100%. Very true. These are just like the personal anecdotes, like what I think, because I feel from this whole conversation, it's been very like, wow, like eye-opening, like fun, and like so exciting for you, your future that holds for you. And really just, what will come next, You never know. You never know what will come next. So that's exciting. Other than that, I think I'm excited to try the bread.
Yes.
And I have my terrarium, so we'll do a little video in a second. Ooh, go, my little gnome. Okay.
Yeah, we have to make sure we water them too, because the soil's dry.
Oh, perfect. So how often would you water it?
It's a great question. Maybe like every week or so, just to make sure like the soil stays moist, and it'll help like that root development with the rooting hormone. So you want to make sure it's just like wet and not dry. And then, like I said, theoretically this could be closed, so as long as you add a little water, that could kind of like cycle through. But you could also leave it open just like that, and it'll actually be a little easier to take care of that way. So
Perfect.
it'll be beautiful, and hopefully it'll start to grow up and out, and then you have a bunch of new leaves to take care of. I do want to share a fun memory that I feel like speaks a lot to the work that I do. I used to work at the Naples Botanical Garden, and that was one time in my life where I was still kind of like growing in this career, and kind of understanding how I teach about the environment, and like I said, the worldview that I have. And a really fond memory I have is I was teaching a school group. I want to say maybe they're in middle school or high school. And that particular group, like I could tell they were of Hispanic, Latin origin. And I was like, okay, we can like understand each other to a certain extent, like I could relate to them. And hopefully, they could relate to me. And we were walking around and like, showing off different plants, and we stopped at the banana, and it had fruits on it. So of course, instantly everyone was like, oh my gosh, look at the fruit, look at the bananas. And that made me happy because I get that reaction a lot, like when you get to see the fruit or vegetable, whatever, like in its natural form versus what you see like at the store, is a huge like aha moment. But I was telling them about like the plant and how it grows and everything, and I kind of went out on a limb. I was like, I don't know if this is like too much, but I asked them, has anyone eaten tamales before? And a few of them raised their hand, and I was like, okay, great. You know how sometimes there's like a wrapper on it, like tied up. Sometimes that can be banana leaves. So, I showed them the leaf, and they're like, oh my gosh. Or I was like, banana leaves, or sometimes like corn husks, like the leaves of the corn plant. And I said, like, that's another part of the plant we don't necessarily eat, but it's used in a dish that is very popular and holds a lot of meaning for people. And just seeing them, like, their amazement, they were like, oh my God, I had no idea. Because they're familiar with that dish and maybe have even prepared it themselves potentially. That was one of my proudest moments working there, was being able to make an impactful moment for them. And I hope they would go home and say, oh, next time I get tamales, I know how it's wrapped. It comes from the banana leaf. Or, the next time my grandma makes it, I can tell her, it comes from this plant. And like, that kind of experience is something I want to take to everybody who does one of my walks or one of my workshops, is like something that connects to their either cultural background, their traditions at home, something specific to where they live, like Miami. We can relate on so many different aspects. Like, when it's mango season, everybody's like jumping over fences to grab the fruit. Like, that's just how it is here, and it's beautiful, and I love it. And like that experience or that memory to me really also just shows like plants are in our lives in every single way, and people don't stop to think about it as much. And that's understandable because our lives are very different than they were in the days where there were hunters and gatherers and things. But even though we have all this technology and stuff now and development, at the end of the day, we still need air to breathe and fruits and vegetables to eat and plants to decorate our lives, because they're always going to be a part of our lives as humans. So
yeah,
that's it.
Listen, I also didn't know that about the banana, the tamales, the leaves, covering when you cook it. So, or, the corn, So I thought that was really cool. I learned something, and I've learned a lot of things through your workshops and your your nature walks. So I mean, literally, it's so much fun. I remember, I'll never forget the tape that you put around, and then we just got to collect all these different little pieces, and it looked like such a cute little bracelet. And that is like, it sticks with you, and you're like, oh, I really want to do it again, you know? Yeah. I'm glad. So, and also big shout out to you, because when I was just scrolling on TikTok, like, I was getting people on, I always get people from Miami. I don't know, for some reason my TikTok is always like,
your algorithm.
My algorithm is like, cats, you know, like Miami. Okay. So then out of nowhere, one of the creators, I believe, she runs the Miami Project.
Yeah. The
Freedom
Freedom Project. Yeah.
The Miami Freedom Project. And I was like, oh, I know Tatiana. Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. So then I look, and I was like, that's you. And in fact, she mentioned that how you are part of the list of the people that create this very special community that you can join at any time to do something fun on the weekend. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, look at that. I mean, I already know Tatiana, but it's like, boom, you are there. People know you, like, you've established yourself. So you've really established yourself. You've really set this, and this platform, because you have a website, this platform where people can reach out to you to create the curriculum, workshops, the walks, I mean, and many things more in the future. I hope a podcast. I'm excited. I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really exciting. I'm also very excited to take care of this plant.
Yes.
You know, I will try my best. I'll take some progress photos and let you know.
Please.
The succulent's still alive and doing really well.
Good.
It's stretching out.
I'm so happy.
I'll send you a picture. Well, Giancarlo, a little cheat sheet there. He's been taking care of it. He has the green thumb.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay, well, that works.
But it's still alive and well. So I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come down to Color Paint.
Oh my gosh.
Because it is so far. and you know, it was raining, so I am so thankful for you coming out, for, you know, making me this really cute terrarium, sharing so many things that are so special about you, and also that place. I need to really check out that thrift place.
Yes. I'll send you it later.
I'm so excited. And you know, it just really is what makes Miami special.
I just couldn't be more thankful to you, Paula. You have been a part of my journey, like I said, kind of helping spread the word on Instagram, and also just being a great friend. So I'm just like so happy to be a part of your project. You know, I feel like it's such a great mesh of, you know, what we both bring to the table, literally. And yeah, I'm just honored. I love the work that I do, and I love that you see the value in it. So, you know, we're just going to keep creating these beautiful platforms for people to explore why this place is so amazing.
I hope you get to host in places that are, you know, very special very soon. I don't want to spoil it, but maybe, and I'll give the people a surprise.
Actually, I guess I kind of have a plug.
Ooh, okay.
I can't confirm the venue just yet, but this will be this venue where I'm going to host workshops very soon was on my list of places. Like, before I even started the business officially, like LLC and all of that, I was just writing like, this is my business, this is how I want it to run, this is how I feel like it's different. And I wrote down places I want to partner with, and this was one of the locations. And somehow, again, like how the connections and people I've met along the way put me in touch with who I needed to for this particular venue, and this was one of my day one places that I wanted to work with. So I'm very happy that is gonna come to fruition.
So soon. Check her page to see what this place is. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's in store for you. I am also very thankful for the terrarium, for your time, and we'll see. You'll see this, and that's it. Yeah, let me see if I'm missing anything.
Add one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
So online, you can find me on Instagram. Is the only social media I have because it's the only one I understand.
Same.
But yes, on Instagram at Teachings by Tatiana, and then my website is just teachingsbytatiana.com.
Gotta be on brand.
Yes.
Gotta keep it on brand.
Yes.
And I'm just Paula. I'm Paus Picks. And
Yes.
but yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. This was a pleasure.
Done.
Yay!